It's basically a 10 to 15% increase in the cumulative sum of all hacks combined, just in this one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Index Podcast, where the three of us come together every couple of weeks to discuss on-chain data, chart crimes, and metrics that move the crypto industry. Today, I have with me Denning, on-chain corgi at Flashbots.
Hi.
Hildoby, resident data horse elf at Dragonfly.
Hello, everyone.
And I am Boxer, the community powers at Dune. Before we start, nothing we say here should be relied upon as legal, financial investment, tax, or even life advice. We are acting independently of our respective professional roles here. And with that, today we are going to talk about the Bybit hack. Today is Monday, the 24th of February. The hack happened last Friday. And for anyone who's completely not in the know, basically around, I think this was 12:30 p.m. UTC time, Friday evening in Europe. Suddenly, a bunch of my chats started lighting up like, hey, there's something that happened with Bybit. And basically what happened is Bybit had a cold wallet, and this is a very usual kind of like exchange setup where they have cold wallets, they have hot wallets, they have kind of lukewarm wallets. It all like kind of depends on what the exchange is doing. But it's a very regular operation to kind of just transfer Ethereum or any other currency, USDT, USDC, from kind of cold wallets to hot wallets. There's kind of different security measures securing these wallets. And during like a very standard procedure of just like transferring funds from one wallet to the other, there was a transaction interception, or kind of like they had malware on their computers, and therefore they lost a bunch of money. But before we dive into the actual details, and a bunch of money is 1.4 billion in this case. So I don't know, like I always think it's very interesting to just kind of hear like how do these rumors or like how do these things spread through the crypto industry. So maybe Dobby, Denning, how did you guys learn of this? How did you react? How did you kind of like what was your experience of this situation? So maybe Hildoby go first.
So yeah, I saw like everyone some tweets happening, and at first I was kind of surprised because this seems like at first glance, like maybe like a FTX situation where funds are moving quickly out of the exchange and you don't know what is happening. Then you realize after some quick sleuthing and some more tweets that this happened to be a hack. And I think one of the great things is the how the crisis management was done, and it managed to calm everyone very quickly. So it wasn't nearly as stressful as it would have been for a hack of this magnitude, as we've seen. I mean, we've never seen it in the past, but like smaller hacks have been much more stressful. So yeah, I don't know. Shout out to the Bybit team for handling it so well, and making us having a stress-free weekend. in the end, I mean, in the aftermath of this huge hack, which could have gone so much worse.
Yeah. So for me, I was still grieving for my money lost in the Libra token scam happened like the week before. And I feel like all the sentiment for crypto has been so down since then. It was also somewhat surprising because I feel like this kind of meme scam has been happening for a while, but that one was really big and so many lawsuits going on and stuff. And people now starting actually tanking Solana about like meme coin is like net negative, damaging to our crypto reputation, etc. So I was like, like people are already starting feeling like that's the worst state for like crypto for within this cycle. People are starting posting about like this is the last, like the darkness before the dawn, etc. kind of thing. But then I saw this news about like Bybit got hacked for like $1.2 billion, and I was like, is this an FTX moment? But then I get on Twitter and I saw that like everything is somewhat wholesome. Like I see like the Bybit CEO or like Ben posted something like, "Oh, those things get hacked and we're investigating. Funds are safe." So there's definitely a lot of like FUD. Like people are be like, "Yeah, that's how people say like funds are safe. That's what like SBF said or something." But then you see like the Binance people, like Ehe and like BitGet funders were saying like, we will support you no matter how it happens. I didn't understand how they could support it, but I guess that made sense later. I saw in the news that the other exchanges are helping to transfer some, money, I guess, as a loan or like a borrowed amount, if to handle their stress of people withdrawing. And like, how to say, Bybit just keep like letting people to withdraw. So that was like pretty crazy. So I guess like they're proven to be solvent, or it's definitely not FTX moment, and it's somewhat it become net positive in the end. So yeah.
I mean, net positive is a question mark. As it
Yeah,
turns out,
true.
North Korean hackers now have 1.4 billion
Yeah.
more in funds to spend to, I
Yeah.
don't know, build nuclear rockets or do something.
I also keep wondering if it like does that mean there's gonna be like a 1.2 billion ETH sell pressure, or people are saying no, actually Bybit needs to buy that amount of ETH actually to fulfill the whole. But yeah, and I mean, yeah, I mean, again, like just to mention like the size of this hack, this is the biggest crypto hack so far, I guess, like in USD value. And if you think about like the Mt. Gox hack that happened for like as such a like thing in Bitcoin history, or like the DAO hack for Ethereum, they were all around just like few $100 million value sides, and like this is like 10x bigger than that.
Just showing like DeFi Llama's page on hacks to showcase the magnitude of the hack relative to history. And I mean, you can clearly see that 1.4 billion in this case is like so much higher. The past highest month had like 730 million, so just about half. And yeah, it clearly stands out relative to the rest. So it's an impressive size, at least. Relative to history. So yeah, something to worry about if you look at it from that angle.
It's basically a 10 to 15% increase in the cumulative sum of all hacks combined, just in this one, which is that is pretty significant. But yeah, whether there's now sell pressure or buy pressure, or I read some analysis that like North Korea is actually just sitting on funds from like the hacks of like the last 5 years. I think Eric Wall posted something where it's like they're still sitting on like $60 from a hack from 2016 or something. So like they must find their way, and like of course this is just $60, but like in the end they're kind of like over time they wash this money and try to get it clean somehow, and like they find ways and new ways, and I don't know, like I think they need to be very creative this time. But like laundering like 50 million, okay, easy, like sure you can get that done, but 1.4 billion is like completely insane. But before we fully talk about the contagions and like all of the other stuff that was going on here, maybe to quickly kind of explain how this whole thing happened. Is like, okay, these exchanges have the cold wallets and they have the hot wallets, and then the cold wallets usually are multisigs, which usually are safes. So formerly Gnosis Safe, now just Safe. Kind of a weird rebrand, to be honest. Like I get dropping the Gnosis, but just saying Safe is like a weird. I don't know. I don't love the naming. But anyways, you're using this, and basically you can set up a this is just a smart contract that you deploy, and then you can say, okay, you need I think in the Bybit case it was there's 6 signers, and you need 3 of those to actually sign a transaction for the transaction to be valid. So somebody initiates a transaction, and then 2 other people need to also sign this transaction in order for the transaction to actually go through. So what the initial kind of initiator of this transaction thought he was doing is just, okay, I'm gonna transfer like 30k ETH to one of the hot wallets, because we're currently seeing like, I don't know, there's like withdrawal pressure for like no good reason. It's just like standard operating procedure. But apparently what has kind of transpired throughout the last few days, what happened is the computer of not only the initial initiator of this transaction, but also the second 2 signers, and probably whoever else is on the multisig might also be infected, or it's just like a very weird coincidence. It's just those 3 people. But anyways, all 3 of the signers, so the initiator of the transaction and the 2 other people who signed the transaction, all had malware in their computer, which then made it seem like, okay, we're just gonna transfer 30k ETH to our other internal address. That's totally fine. We're just gonna transfer that to a hot wallet. But in the end, what kind of happened is, okay, those safe multisig smart contracts are actually set up as proxy wallets. And what the transaction did in the end is it changed the proxy implementation to a smart contract that then was able to sweep kind of all the assets that are in this wallet. Sweep it into the hacker's wallet. This is like, if you sign a transaction on a safe, I mean, you could just have a hot wallet in terms of like a MetaMask generated key, like I don't know how you would, what's the technical definition of this. But it seems like the Bybit team, at least the CEO, said in his live stream that he was using a ledger, and that would have actually been like, there's a possibility there to spot the hack in that moment. It's like you take your ledger, and then like for a lot of like DeFi interactions, you actually have to enable blind signing. You guys have probably all ran into this before, where it's like, okay, you want to sign some shit on your ledger, and then it's like the ledger like kind of tells you like, this is not allowed, or like, I don't know, the MetaMask thing doesn't really pop up, or like, and then it's like, okay, like I need to enable blind signing, and then it's like, okay, what does this even mean? And that just means like, okay, the ledger can't really verify. Like, I think if you transfer like ETH to something else, to somewhere, the ledger is actually able to kind of like tell you that like, hey, you're transferring ETH, or like you're transferring ERC20 tokens. But then if you like start depositing into Aave or do some like more complicated stuff, then it's like the ledger is lost. Like, it doesn't know how to parse this transaction, and just throws a bunch of call data at you. And since the nature of like these safe multisigs are smart contracts, you are basically doing a transaction that's like most of the times just exact transaction, and then like the actual like call data is like the call data of the actual transaction is just like a data field inside of that struct. So it's like the ledger doesn't know what the fuck is going on. So like basically the proper final check kind of like got skipped, or like it's kind of like, to be honest, like I have a safe, and like I use that for personal reasons, where like I have like multiple wallets that are signers of a safe, and like I don't fucking check that thing. Like it's just like there's a random message hashes, and you're just like, yep, skip, or like 1 2 3 4. Like it actually shows you the full string, and then you're like, okay, whatever, approve, and that's it. That's that. Should that be the case when you're transferring $1.4 billion on behalf of a company? Maybe not, but I don't know. Who am I to judge? It's really tough, and like this is just like something where I don't really know what the solution here is. Probably like I think the most like obvious critique point is like, why are they not using like separate computers for this? Like just like, I don't know, have a Chromebook, which is like, Chromebooks are fairly hack resistant, and like you could probably like, I don't know, just not use the same computer for your day-to-day whatever, writing emails and being on crypto Twitter, and I don't know, opening applicant PDFs, which is like the worst thing. Like if you ever like try to hire in crypto, you're always like, oh my god, like I need to like people are sending me PDFs, I don't want this, help. So yeah, that's pretty much what transpired. Really tough situation.
So just to try to summarize what you explained to us, how the whole hack happened. So there are a few, I guess, engineers within Bybit who are managing the fund or the multi-sig signer. Somehow their laptop got installed some software by those hackers from North Korea, and those hackers mimicked a exact same or somehow like front end as Gnosis Safe. And somehow the engineers, when they saw the front end, they decided to like sign in based on whatever like the front end is like initiating. And then the second signer and third signer, when they sign on the ledger, they only see a message hash. They have no idea what this, I guess, like it exactly is within the ledger UX. And so they just sign and everything happened. So I guess like down the whole chain reaction, it's like, who is the problem to blame here? It's like, I mean, everything originated still, I guess, some sort of like a phishing hack, or somehow made the people install the malicious thing in their laptop as the first place. But then like you can't blame Gnosis Safe, because like it's not really something like trigger from their front end. It's somebody just like fork their front end. I think one thing to learn here is that I feel like the front end should never be open source. Like, it's like, what's the point of allowing anybody to like fork your front end? And it could kind of like fool people in some way. And then the next thing is like, just like the ledger signing function could have had a better UX, maybe like to enable all these like interpretation of what exactly the hash is. And you said that they have some simple version of that when it's ETH transfer, but they don't have it for like this type of like complicated message hash. So yeah, I think like there's a few lesson learns here, but
I think for front ends, it's fairly easy now to like just give a link to like ChatGPT and say like create me the
I
same
see.
website, even if like not open sourced. Maybe it's not, but if it's not, it'll be in a few
Yeah, this
I don't
was
know
also like
weeks.
they intersect, like the malware simulated, or like even if they didn't have the complete front end, they could have just injected like because I think the Bybit CEO was saying like, hey, this was the official safe.global. This was not safe. Like I don't know, globai or something, like I don't know, some weird like
Yeah,
typo thing. Like this was the official UI, and like I tend to believe him. And it's like they just interjected, like the malware either simulated the whole website or like I don't know, just changed some values during the display of that transaction. So
yeah,
it's like yeah, I don't know if you can blame the safe team, like actually, like or like
yeah. I
not
don't
blame
think
the
so.
safe team, but like I don't think like the front end purely is like a area of attack here. Like we even had like people were like launching Dune tokens, like that happens like once in a while, right? And like they will just have a carbon copy of our like main landing page, and it's
Yeah.
like our front end is not open source. Is like it seems to be very fairly simple to recreate front ends.
But I think it's not a clone front end, but more like a local hack to their computer that when on that front end it like it had unintended kind of like Temper Monkey. I don't know if you guys know this. It's like a plugin where you can modify what websites do. That's what I would compare it to, from what I understand. But I think the two bottlenecks here are more on like the hardware wallets. I'm not saying it's like hardware wallets teams to blame, but it's the thing to solve that probably goes a long way more than anything else. And that's like screen size is too constraining to have such like big things to sign. Like you can't, like that's one of the bottlenecks. And the other one is going to be compute, and you need machines that are able to actually run what is going on and simulate the transaction locally, so that people can actually take a deeper look. But also, if it's just like raw transaction data, like you need it to be somewhat interpretable, and not like, because even if it's a wall of text and everything is there, no one's going to read it everything. You need some more concise way to interpret it at a glance. I don't know what that is, but yeah, we need to improve security measures, and hopefully that has all the central exchanges, obviously also including Bybit, upping their custody methods and how they go about transferring funds.
yeah, yeah. If there had some kind of simulation service from either party or any part of this thing, and you can show you that okay, after this transaction, if you sign this amount of money, going to transfer to this. I feel like that could also help. And overall, I
Well,
think so.
that's what safe usually does. Like
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
what safe usually does. It's just like in this case, they like it got intercepted, so it's like
Right.
do the wallets like usually the wallet also does this, right? Like if you sign some shit in your Rabby, I don't know how well it works for multi-sigs. Um, like I cannot remember at the moment, but
Phantom
usually there's
has
like
some.
there is multiple things that actually like try to do these things, but it's like if the local machine is fucked, then you're fucked. So it's like okay, the fallback mechanism. Why do we use hardware wallets? And it's like okay, to keep my keys secure, but now there seems to be kind of a second maybe
Mhm.
more underexplored I don't know, field of tasks for the hardware wallets here, which is actually like make sure that the shit I'm signing on my computer is actually the stuff that happens in the wallet. And in that sense, it's like, yeah, as Dobby says, like on this tiny screen, like you can't see anything. But then it's like if it's just raw data, it's also like really tough. But at least with the bigger screen and raw data, you can kind of make out like, okay,
Yeah.
like we all like deal with raw data once in a while, right? Like you just look at something and you're like, okay, like there's a bunch of like there's 0x and there's a bunch of zeros, and then there's like I don't know, some address starts, and then you're like, okay, these are the first 32 bytes. It seems to be like okay, we have an address stored here which is usually 16 bytes, so it's like the first everything and the first 16 bytes is zeroed out, and then like okay, like the next thing is I don't know, some like, of course this is like super nerdy, but like maybe the people who like sign transactions worth 1.4 billion should be able to read that kind of stuff.
One of my suggestions would be like, out of the whole raw data, you can extract all the addresses that are being interacted with. And from those, you should be able to tell, okay, those are all either like tokens that we want to transfer, so all good, or those are addresses we have labeled. And if anything isn't one of those two, or whatever else should be normal behavior, then something should be flagged, and like the UX itself should be like, hey, this is not in your database of addresses, or I don't know. I feel like that's probably some way, like wallet you interact to. You know, if you're transferring to a wallet, it's supposed to be somewhere in there, right? It can't be fully hidden. So that would be my suggestion. But I'm sure there's others things that can be done.
Yeah, I also, one last point on this before we look into data is that I feel like I don't know how the practice is within Bybit for a multi-sig partner. Like how to say, I used to be a multi-sig on a DAO fund where they like release funds or grants to analysts when they complete a dashboard. And whenever they pin me on like Discord to say we need a multi-sig, I just go there and click, and I see like roughly on the text what they say in the Gnosis safe, say, oh, I'm paying this analyst for this amount of money. I don't really go verify if that analyst did the job or if that address is an analyst address. So I think like it probably also worth considering like tightening or like do some due diligence on how multisig actually operates when they sign a transaction. Like they should have some accountability rather than just go click something, verify things.
Yeah, thank God for the employees of Bybit. The CEO was actually the one who last signed the transaction, which probably like the other two guys are probably like, who? Like, thank God it wasn't just us. Which is, I don't know. Those like, this is a really sophisticated hack. This was super targeted at those like few characters inside of the company, which is actually like, okay, how did they even know who the signers are? Hopefully it's not just like the C-level executives. Like that would be a bit too easy to guess for Lazarus. But like Zach,
Yeah.
this was like very targeted, very planned. So it's like, can you really blame these guys? It's like, no, I think they like made use of the tool, like kind of, but also like this was very standard operating procedure. Like if somebody had audited their like operating procedures, it would have probably passed. Like they did the things they were supposed to do, and then it's like after that it's like, okay, sure, you can always go like the extra mile, but like how much of a logistical burden is it to like always like double triple check all the hashes and shit? So it's like,
Yeah,
it just really sucks. And with that I think like maybe we can move into the aftermath a bit. So I think W, if you can you throw up the DeFi llama chart of inflows outflows? Of course, quickly after this news spread, there was quite a few outflows out of Bybit. So Bybit usually, and these are the DeFi numbers. We don't know how complete this list of addresses is, but this includes a bunch of Bitcoin, Sol, ETH addresses.
In order to look at the aftermath, I think we can look at like, I mean, Bybit themselves tweeted their relative data, so we don't have actually actual numbers on like deposits and withdrawals, but we have relative per hour. We can see when the hack happens, you start to see higher withdrawal than normal, and it takes a few hours. So that's at 3 p.m. UTC. No, wait, hack happened. Yes, 3 p.m. UTC, right?
No, 12. Like where the big two bars are in the middle.
Yeah, but this one on the left, because this is, so green is the number of withdrawals and blue is the value of withdrawals. So there was two spikes in withdrawals, but the number reached the highest on the leftmost smaller peak, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's the highest amount of people that withdrew.
Yeah. Okay. Let me restart. So in order to look at like the aftermath, we can look at what Bybit tweeted, which is a few hours after the hack. In order to, once again, on their great communication, they chose to reassure everyone by showing their actual data of inflows and outflows. So we have both the number of inflows and outflows as well as the value, the cumulative value of each of those per hour. And we can see that when the hack happens around 3 p.m. UTC, we start to have a small, like quite a big spike in terms of number of withdrawals. So on this graph here, it's the green line. and it goes to the highest point in the charts. We don't actually have numbers, like I said before. It's only relative numbers, but you can see that this is where peak crisis kind of happened, and people were in max stress scenario, because there was little info on what was happening. So as precautionary measures, um, it makes sense for people to start moving their funds off of chain, off of the central exchange. But you had also a larger spike quite a few hours later, so 10 or so hours later. But the value quickly decreased again, and I think this is all thanks to their great communication, because it's rare that within 12 hours the crisis has been mostly calmed down. And in fact, you can even see the trend for deposits being reversed, which is that when those withdrawals stop, you can see deposits go up again. So my assumption is that this is both people redepositing their fund once they've been reassured, as well as we'll talk later, the ETH being essentially lent by other exchange and other parties, as well as being bought and acquired by Bybit in order to fill that gap. But yeah, very interesting data, I think, from Bybit. And once again, if you look through their Twitter, as well as their CEO's Twitter, the communication was absolutely amazing. Like, it's not every day you see a hack of this magnitude, and the CEO hops on a live stream within minutes. Like, it's crazy well done on their end.
Yeah, I agree. This has been a masterclass in communications and public relations. Like, just be open, transparent. Don't fall into corpo speak. Just be like, hey guys, we fucked up. We lost some money here. But thankfully, exchanges are a money printing business, and I think they're just able to cover the losses in full, which is completely insane. Like, imagine any other company having oh yeah, sure, we can just we lost 1.4 billion, but sure, we can just recover it. We could just repay this. It's excuse me,
for scale, I think for Bybit, which is a huge exchange, by the way. So yes, 1.4 billion is a huge number for everyone, but for them, it's 1 year worth of revenue, which is a lot, but they have that on hand and are available to fill that gap fairly quickly, which is great. Obviously, I wish that didn't happen, but at least they can make users whole fairly quickly and reassure everyone that everything is safe.
They could respond so quickly and positively because they don't have anything to hide like FTX,
I mean, you can see how also something that gave confidence is that on FTX, Binance was not quick at all to be quickly, hey, yeah, we'll help you guys out. Whereas now on this hack, you had other teams like Binance quickly respond and help out by lending ETH, and that does help bring up confidence for everyone, right? It's it's kind of like VCs doing each other's due diligence, and therefore other VCs following in, being like, okay, well, surely if this VC has vetted this company, it must be great. So I'm not going to go as deep. You should go as deep just in case. But that does bring up the confidence level.
Yeah, the VCs failed at FTX, if you forgot.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the Bybit tweets and all of Ben, the CEO's tweets were basically the responses were who's who of the crypto scene, just the personal accounts of CZ and I don't know how the other exchange founders or CEOs are called, but they were all in there, and they were all like, hey, let us know if you need anything, and we're here for support, and all of this stuff. It's quite impressive, quite interesting also, how, I don't know, the personal brands of these people are enormously important for these companies. And I think that's in general a shift where you very much see this emergence of the I don't know, I don't want to say the individual, but it's for all of these brands, these individual accounts, the Tron account is shit, Justin Sun account, the Justin Sun's account is the important one. And it's you can see that with in this whole drama, this was this is kind of a side arc or something to be studied, where it's okay, how these people have connections to the individual people, no longer to brands, kind of. I think that that's really interesting to me.
Because I saw also Ethena and others mentioned in the whole news, and how did that affect the whole DeFi, reaction or impact?
Yeah, so Ethena which side note is a Dragonfly portfolio company. Just to throw that out there, they could have been impacted. I mean, they were impacted in some way because their whole business is a basis trade, which is essentially longing and shorting the token and taking that money that shorters or people who long are paying to the other side. There's like essentially some non-fixed APY from there that you can extract, and that's what they're doing in large size across multiple exchanges. One of them being Bybit. And we also had great communication, I would say, from the Ethena team. Guy, the CEO, quickly tweeted out information to reassure everyone. And they had some of their largest withdrawals. I mean, they had their largest withdrawal event historically. And everything went smoothly, and they were quickly, they were able to fill everyone's needs. And they were actually never under collateralized at any point due to their custody solution, which is slightly different. EOS custody solutions. I actually don't know too much about it, so I'm not going to go too deep, but it gives them more control over their funds rather than having them in a cold wallet, much like the rest of ETH was for Bybit. And this was a design decision done, quite a few months ago, and I think proves that it kind of pays off. And yeah, luckily, I guess contagion risks on that front, which Ethena, I would say, probably was one of the potential biggest, were very quickly mitigated, and there was nothing, not much to worry about, and every user was made whole. The only thing, though,
there was nothing lost in the first place. Like, if you
Yeah,
say
no,
every user was made whole, that makes
I
it
mean
sound
every
like there
user
was nothing.
withdrawing.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I mean. Sorry, every user withdrawing was made whole on their withdrawals. The only thing is you had some liquidations on lending markets due to obviously price shifting really quickly during those times. I think USDE did depeg a bit, but there was also some problems with some Chainlink oracles that maybe Boxer you know more about than I do, so I'll let you talk on that one.
Essentially, in Ethena, you just deposit USDT or stablecoins in general. I think it's just USDT. And then Ethena goes out and farms with those stablecoins, right? So, like, theoretically, you can always just exchange them. But then, as DeFi is like all of these money Legos, and like there's also exchanges where you can just exchange the stuff. So, like, you can trade USDE for USDT on Uniswap v3, on Curve, on all the other decentralized exchanges. But at the same time, there's also like just a native smart contract from Ethena where you can just exchange this one to one, which is like price independent. You can just exchange this one to one. And what happened is the Chainlink oracles are actually pointed at these DeFi pools. So they are pointing at the Curve pool and at the Uniswap v3 pool and at like centralized exchanges. And on those centralized exchanges, of course, people panic. They're just like, okay, like whatever, the price is one to one. Let me just convert out of this position. I don't care about the yield for these few hours. I'm just gonna like try to see and like let the dust settle, and then I'm fine. Like, and then like I'll reconsider. And since like a bunch of people, of course, USDE, which is the stablecoin from Ethena, is also enabled on a bunch of lending markets, and those lending markets depend on Chainlink oracles. And then, of course, like people start looping with those stablecoins, because like the assumption is they're always backed one to one, which so far has been true, and like also in this crisis has been true. You could always read them one to one on chain, but because the Chainlink oracles are specifically pointing at like the Chainlink oracles, they kind of like, there's like a bunch of reporters in the network, and they look at different sources, and then they report the price onto the Chainlink network. And it's like, it's not always like, I think they actually do kind of say where their sources are, but their sources are not this like module from Ethena itself, but rather and I'm not quite sure if the module always says it's one-to-one conversion. Maybe there's like a version where, or like there's a reality where the module actually depegs as well, but the module always was at one-to-one. So one-to-one redemption was always possible. So the Chainlink Oracle depegging is that's a misconfiguration. Like, this should not happen. So like even if the price like on some centralized exchange kind of DPEX, the real price was always 1-to-1 because you could just go to Ethena itself. So yeah, due to that, a bunch of people got liquidated on lending markets, which is I think it was to the extent of like 50 million. There's a great thread from one of the guys or like the founder of Chaos Labs explaining all of this. So maybe we throw that down down into the info section here. But yeah, that should not happen. And it's like, okay, yeah, we've built all of these money Legos, but we actually need to make all of them talk to each other. And yeah, this is like, I think that there's been like so many chain link kind of like near disasters or like valid criticisms of like the chain link system. So maybe that's a story for another day. Of course, like I don't have any other solution as well. But I think there's quite a few teams working on this, but it's kind of a cold start problem. It's like nobody wants to trust in the Oracle provider to secure billions in lending TVL or whatever. So it's like, yeah, it's a pretty tough problem to solve. And this is just like one interesting side story here.
How was Ethena's TVL impacted? Maybe you can take a quick look.
I have a counter opinion on this. I feel like I don't think it's a mistake that Oracle pointed at like a market exchange rate on chain. It's just like there are people panicking selling, and in other cases, if it's not Ethena, you don't know if it's because actually there was a loss of reserve, and they may not be able to redeem the token 1-to-1, right? And like I feel like it's a design choice of like if Oracle wants to point it to a theoretical on-chain exchange rate based on APY and everything on that protocol, or should it also consider the exchange rate on DEX, because that's effectively how much ETH you can get back when you exchange to that token. And I guess that Oracle then used to buy a lot of lending markets, and that caused the liquidation on Aave, which was like 22 million. Is that a mistake? I don't know. I think it's like a stress test, and it kind of showed that DeFi works as how it's supposed to be.
My uneducated opinion on like Oracle, this Oracle thing is that maybe that should be like I think it's an in between where yes, it's I guess a decent reflection of the price. The Oracle did that job, but you could redeem using that official kind of module. You could redeem for USDC or USDT, and maybe this should take priority over other oracles. Now, it's not great to have one source, of course, so I understand also the problem with this, and it's also it's a problem specific to this protocol, but I'm sure there's others like it, of course. But I guess it's a good thing to talk about. The thing is, you also have, maybe not in this case, but maybe you always have, some sources where you can redeem for more than the others, but you should also factor in liquidity. So, you can't just say prices are different based on liquidity and the price impact and everything. And it's hard to take all this into account to the single like value gathered from an oracle. Like there's so many consideration and so many nuances. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, but I don't know enough about oracles to have an educated take there, I guess.
I think in this case, the Oracle like correctly flagged the risk of how all the on-chain price depends on what's supposed to be. So
yeah, no, I agree.
But I guess it's like actually the on-chain price mostly held up fine. Like the problem was more like that the centralized exchanges fucked up more, because like then somebody needs to take the action of like, okay, exchange USDT for USDE on-chain and then deposit that onto the DEX, or like buy USDE on that specific centralized exchange where maybe there's not a buyer in place there. So it's like very kind of long tail market influenced like the whole lending market, which is like on the Chainlink Oracle actually pegged down to 97 cents or 97.4 or something, while Curve on chain only kind of went down to 99.5 cents. So it's like in that case, it's kind of difficult. Like I think like the Chainlink Oracles may be a bit like too simple in its approach of like how do we value these different things, and is the sex like market more important here, or is the DEX market more important here? And also like what can we actually do on chain? Does Ethena itself report that redemption should actually be fine, which is like, okay, should you trust that? Because then Ethena is like a super like big trust assumption built into it, where Ethena is basically just like a hedge fund running a strategy on chain, and you can kind of like give them their money fairly permissionlessly. I mean, that's like I think it's a reductionist take of what Ethena is doing, but like in the end, this is like an hedge fund could run the same strategy, and it's like in this case, you can just deposit your USDT with them. So yeah, complicated stuff. I think super interesting story of just like, okay, how can DeFi be affected by like we're now merging like on chain and off chain a bit, and it's like it's becoming increasingly more with like RWAs, and but also just like simple stuff like this where it's like, okay, what money is like on centralized stored on centralized servers, and what money is stored on like purely on chain and can be accessed programmatically and all of this stuff. And sometimes like where we get into these gray zones, there's also like there's always a potential for fuck up. So definitely not the first story of this kind, and will definitely not be the last story of this kind.
I think to follow on like this, the timeline of events, we can look at, also great on their crisis response team, how quickly they filled the hole. I have some data on this, so let me share quickly. And essentially, there was a table provided by Look on Chain, showcasing that they have managed to gather 1.2 billion worth of ETH from various parties. So this is a bunch of OTC buys as well as lending from several central exchanges. Here you can see the compiled list from Look on Chain. We'll share as well in the description, so you can all look for it. And this was also quote tweeted by the CEO of Bybit to share with everyone that for ETH, everything is back 1-to-1 once again. And that was very early this morning in European time. So that's like barely under 3 days after the hack. And gathering this much ETH as well this quickly is impressive. So congrats to them to working overtime to make sure things are resolved as quickly as possible on the weekend.
Yeah, I think the whole community needs to take something away from this whole thing. Like surely there wasn't really substantial damage caused from this. I mean, there is substantial damage caused to Bybit, but I think overall it didn't really hurt the sentiment too much. I think one important element within all this was also like all these tooling and figures like Zach XBT who were able to provide a lot of transparency along the way. And like Ethena also had the like transparency dashboards where like how much funds they have at each exchange and stuff. All these provide a lot of trust and I think comfort people. I don't know if like I think Dolby, you might be the person that's closest to that connection with Zach XBT. Do you have any insights how he actually tracks those addresses or?
Well, I'm not particularly close, but I do follow his stuff and look at how he reports on various hacks. He's been following these hacks, not only this one, but others of the same type. I think we mentioned before being Femex and was there X, which sorry if I mispronounce, but I'm just a French dude, and yeah. So here we can see how he traces address. There's the easy tracing, which is just following addresses 1-to-1. But of course, what I would assume the goal of what we now know is North Korea. So the hacker, their goal is to have people lose track of the funds, so that they can eventually extract it from somewhere, because either the wallets weren't tagged as the hackers in time, and therefore they were able to withdraw or use some shady exchanges or OTC desks in order to swap onto other networks, blockchains, or whatever. And so I think with something of this magnitude, they tried every method possible from what I'm seeing. One of them being using some kind of OTC central exchange thing that I don't really understand much of, which is called EXCH. I don't actually know how to pronounce because it's not really a word, but this thing, and they managed to launder, according to Ty from MetaMask, I think 29,000 Ethereum from there. They also seem to have connected. So the reason we know this is Lazarus, North Korea, is because through on-chain sleuthing provided by ZachXBT, we see that the addresses, some of the funds were deposited to an address that was previously linked to the Femex hack, which was back then already attributed to the Lazarus group. So we can actually see these 3 hacks, this very sophisticated kind of malware that was introduced onto very targeted people, were conducted by the same team. And we can see right now that they're also struggling to extract fully this. They managed to extract some money, but there's so much happening on so many chains and so many addresses that it's hard for now to get a fully compiled list of things. Maybe this is good work that needs to be done eventually, and look at compiling, what has North Korea actually managed to extract from the ecosystem, because it's only extracted once it's actually taken out of the blockchain and can be used for other things. But yeah, as always, impressive work from people like ZachXBT. We can thank him, Ty, as always, anyone honestly providing any info on Twitter or helping the teams. And I do believe that the Bybit team has pledged to give back 10% of recovered funds to kind of all these people, helping them out in tracking or providing any info that can be useful to identify the hackers. Yeah, so I think those tend to be, kind of public goods, people who just do this for public goods purposes and aren't necessarily funded for it. So I think this is a great thing. Thank you to the Bybit team for providing some of these funds to those people who definitely deserve it, and I think make the crypto ecosystem better.
I think Bybit has actually clawed back something like 40 million.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well.
Yeah.
But
mainly,
I haven't
due to mental ETH. Don't ask me
Oh,
about the
right.
mechanisms there. But somehow, and like the USDT CEO also tweeted like, "Hey, we froze like 180K or something." It's like everyone is coming together, and like these lists get shared, and like whatever Lazarus touches, like people try to get them to stop, or like just stop them in their tracks, I guess. But in the end, this is hard, and like sure, ZachXBT and all of these people are doing great work, but in the end, like North Korea keeps doing this, so like apparently they're finding ways to eventually convert this into like real money. So yeah, of course, like we should all
Yeah.
try to make sure that this doesn't turn into real money. But yeah, it's tough. Eventually, there's always a trick, and it just makes a bad actor like. Yeah, I don't want to name anyone because I'm not familiar enough with this space. But yeah, until very recently, I think Torchain was like one of the big ways
Yeah.
to launder money. But now Torchain apparently has some problems, and like their validators are down. I don't like this is not the side of crypto. I'd rather stay in the scene, in the light. And yeah, huge respect for all of these people. It's super tough work. We've all hit like walls analysis, and it's just like, okay, what now? Like this person deposited into Tornado. I can't, like, how would I even attempt to now see, or like this person is gonna do the centralized exchange. Like where do we go from here? Like I don't fucking know where the money went afterwards. I don't know how all of these people do it. I'm sure there's like sophisticated tools out there that help them with this, but in the end, it's all about the people. So yeah,
There was even some like fun, I mean not fun, but like some side effects. One of them that I saw on Twitter was that one of the wallets that received some money from the hack eventually through various threading was a Solana wallet that was later found to have launched a token before actually the hacked funds made it onto that wallet. People misinterpreted, of course, it pumped a bit because it's Solana meme coin stuff. Then someone else decided to launch a meme coin, and like was the trend back then for like Pepe and I feel like that era, but I don't have specific names, but when people send fund to like Vitalik and stuff like this of like meme coins on Ethereum, it was the same that happened for some token called Lazarus, and Lazarus just instantly swapped it for Solana. And by the way, I'm pretty sure this is like sending money to North Korea is probably a criminal offense in most countries. So I wouldn't recommend,
Pretty
and I
sure.
would
Pretty sure.
stray off from from doing this. But yeah, you can always bet on Solana meme coins to entertain in the meantime, I guess.
The other relevant debate was like among all these aftermaths, like the Solana people and Bitcoiners are calling Ethereum to roll back, and I don't know, it feels just like a somewhat like attacking each other in the chaos kind of case.
Yeah, I mean, what a mid take. Like, you can't roll back Ethereum anymore, anyways. Like,
Yeah, I
it's
think
not
it's
even a mid take. It's just a horrible take. Like, there's no way you're gonna re-roll. Like, even like 30 minutes of Ethereum. Like, there's so many kind of cross-chain things happening now. Like, do you want to roll back Ethereum and all of the EVM networks that have had transactions with Ethereum in that period of time? Because otherwise, like, nothing makes sense anymore. It's like completely impossible. And it's like, I think Laura Shin had a great post on like, okay, like, we don't actually want to roll back the chain to like a certain block, but rather what we would want to do is like do like state like how did she call it, like
Irregular state change.
yeah, an irregular state change. But it's not even like the money is no longer just in one wallet. We can't even just like reverse this account into like another account or whatever. There's like I don't know. I
Yeah,
like
I
some
think
comments from the Solana, like I think this was like one of the Solana co-founders or something. It's like he
yeah,
was like,
Raj.
okay, roll Ethereum back. There's like precedent for this. It's like, come on, dude. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
I don't understand this comment. Like, you must know that this is not like this is just physically not possible. Like that'd be like so much chaos. Like this is completely not feasible. So like, why even insinuate something like this? And I don't know. Like the mid curvers have really been out in full force over Twitter over the last few days. Like everyone suddenly is an expert in like safe and ledger and transaction signing and like, oh, this should be that, and like we should roll back the chain. Like I don't know.
yeah.
This shit is still hard. Like I think we all need to be patient with each other. And I don't know. Like this is like I think actually like an interesting trend that emerges here is like the hacks are no longer smart contracts. The hacks are all social or like targeted malware local machine hacks. Like we've actually genuinely not seen a smart contract hack in like a really long time. So it seems like the solidity thing is actually a good thing.
Yeah, I think like those comments mostly come from people outside of the Ethereum sphere, from other blockchains. So what I've seen mostly cited, because I actually haven't seen much on my feed except from like the Raz comment you mentioned, but I did see that people relaying that those were Bitcoin maxis and other ecosystems complaining that this could have been easily mitigated through like a rollback. And this comes from the fact that back in the day there was the DAO hack, which, just for comparison, relative size was like a third of ETH, or like all ETH. So it was lower in USD value back then, of course, but in terms of magnitude and the scale was much higher. It's also a very different system where there was just not DeFi. There was not much contagion that was happening back then. It was a fairly simple contract, and not much was happening on chain. And also the funds were locked for, I believe, 21 days, and therefore people had time, like you had time to fork within this time frame without having other side effects in the meantime, and needing to retrace like full history and like go full sleuthing on every transaction. It just wouldn't be possible right now. Like it's not even just Ethereum. It's like you got bridges, you got a ton of stuff happening. You got stuff that depegged. Like, how do you make those users whole? And it's just not a realistic take. And also, like, one of Ethereum's core value is its liveness. Like, it's like you want, like, one of its best thing is that it's been live for so long, and it has a proven record of being live and with unhalted performance for such a long history now. And I think it's pretty impressive, and like you're not going to take away from this for just quote unquote a hack of this size relative to the whole size of the chain and everything that's happening. It's just a small piece of the pie, and like not important enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's funny, but it's also nice to know that like we can't do all this because all the things we've already achieved, as in like how decentralized it is today. Like I was asking in our Slack initially, asking like, can Block Builder do anything? Like say, okay, now we see the hackers has moved funds to these addresses. Can we just censor all these addresses, transactions? And the answer is like, it's pointless, because there's going to be some other block builder, proposer, include those transactions on chain. It's not as centralized as you think. You can censor everything. And like, and I think it's generally just not good look if you, like, I understand the social layer of like, we want to slash all these kind of things, we're trying to prevent things, but also against our will of why Tornado Cash is created, and why like we want to make Ethereum World War III censorship resistant, and like why we want blockchain in the first place, that it's because it's irreversible. So it's how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and also who tells you what transactions are wrong and right? It's completely and entirely correct that now that North Korea has the money, it is able to move it, because then like, okay, like somebody, I don't know, somebody clawed back money. I mean, this is a difficult philosophical exercise. And I just ran into a corner that I need to get out of. But I mean, the North Korean money being censored would probably be right. But is it good that we live in, like, is it good if we had a state of Ethereum where certain transactions could be censored based on some nation states' demands?
Oh, no, that would be horrible.
And like we had that before, right? Like all the Tornado Cash contracts were OFAC sanctioned or whatever. Now this is also reversed, and I'm not sure if we can use Tornado again. But like I think like this is the whole like point of like these systems. Like we want to move beyond nation states, and like sure that they're self-censoring, and like we should all make sure to like really get the worst actors out of the system. But then like after that, it's like it just gets difficult.
Yeah. The blockchain itself should be like credible and neutral, right? Like it's not to any nation state's opinions, and North Korea should have the ability to also use Ethereum. And I mean, one personal hope, like I think like the funniest plot twist would be that North Korea are actually super aligned with Ethereum, and maybe one day they're gonna start spinning up like a staking node. That would be crazy.
There's no nation state which has ETH in its treasury, or like how do you say this, the reserve fund or whatever. I think this is very bullish ETH. It's actually like I think what's ETH market cap right now? It's like 300 billion or something, maybe 250. Like if you think about it, like it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty crazy amount of ETH that North Korea is now in control over. Like it's literally like a like. Is it a percent or is it a fraction of a percent?
I think it's a fraction of a percent.
But like still, it's a number that you could read and it'd be like, okay, like this, like it's not 0.000005, but rather it must be like 0. Man, we're all data analysts. We should be.
I believe it to be in the top. I think it's in the top 20 of ETH holders at this point in terms of
only the top 20.
Well, it probably is lower, but I don't want to say something that's wrong.
Okay, together with China and US.
And that includes like stuff like Uniswap, which is like TVL and stuff like this. So that's what I mean by top 20. It's not just 20 individuals.
Yeah, it should be something like 0.4%. All supply is now in the hands of North
insane.
Korea, it's completely insane. But yeah, I guess good days ahead or bad days ahead. Well, we shall see.
Hopefully good.
Always a journey to be on as an ETH holder. Is North Korea Ethereum aligned? Who knows? Find out next.
We'll see. Do they? Maybe they start staking. Who knows?
Or are they gonna start at L2?
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're coming up on time here. Or anyone got anything?
No, I think we're good here.
All right. So yeah, Bybit has involuntarily transferred 1.4 billion to North Korea, and we shall see what happens. You have listened to the Index podcast, and we will catch you again in 2 weeks. Bye bye. Crypto data wizards, come join us for the parade. From Bitcoin ETF to Solana meme coin trade, uncovering public secrets in the blockchain shade. Bad chiller, cherry picking liar. We call them out and set chart crime on fire.